Call to order the regular school board meeting of the Saline School Board for Tuesday, September 9, 2014. Thursday will be the 13th anniversary of 9/11. I invite you to join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
This is the point in the meeting where members of the public can address the board for up to 3 minutes. Are there any members of the audience who wish to address the board this evening?
Good evening. My name is Jason Gumenick, and I'm a history and government teacher at Saline High School. I'm also the social studies department chairperson, and I'm also on the executive board of the Michigan region of the Anti-Defamation League. I'm here tonight to address my concern about the scheduling of homecoming on the Jewish holiday of Yom Kippur. Yom Kippur is the holiest day of the year among the Jewish people. And just so you know, Yom Kippur begins this year Friday evening at sundown on October 3rd. Sundown that evening is at 7:38 p.m., probably during first quarter of the homecoming football game. That extends until about 7:40 the next evening on October 4th, about 20 minutes before the dance is scheduled to begin. I've been teaching in the district for 16 years, and there is a long-standing policy of not scheduling these events on major religious holidays. On page 58 of the staff handbook that I received about 2 weeks ago, it reads, staff, please click on the link below to view the religious holiday calendar. Please note that a number of important Jewish holidays are occurring very soon in September. Please be aware that our policy states that we will not schedule the following events on these days. And that includes major exams or reviews for major exams, standardized tests, tryouts for athletic teams, cheerleaders, etc., major events such as prom, homecoming, parents' nights, elections, graduations, student picture days, etc. Okay. And then it lists a link for the calendar of religious holidays from 2008 to 2015. It is very disappointing that the most well-attended event of the year is scheduled at a time which excludes some of our students from being able to attend. Scheduling such an important event during Yom Kippur sends a message of exclusion, a message that is directly at odds with the stated district-wide policy. Being mindful of all students' religious observances is one simple way to promote respect for diversity in our public schools. I call on the leaders of the district to make decisions that support a welcoming and inclusive environment for all. In the short term, this would include looking at future dates to rescheduling homecoming, as well as communicating with members of the district why this decision was made. In the long run, I ask you to develop policies to prevent this conflict from happening again. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Are there other members of the audience who wish to address the board this evening?
Hello, board. My name is Annie Lee.
And I'm Heather Bannett.
And we are representing Strive, which is a Saline High School club that represents the student body. So we are also here tonight to discuss the issue of homecoming being scheduled on the Jewish holiday of Yom Kippur. And although neither of us are Jewish, we both feel that, as Mr. Gumenick said, it kind of sends a message of exclusion towards those of the student body and staff that are Jewish. And we wanted to speak about our concern and the possibility of the date of homecoming being rescheduled.
Something that we have here is a schedule of all the religious holidays and the dates they take place on. And I've highlighted Yom Kippur and October 3rd and 4th. So this was given to staff members of 2008. And also in 2011, a newsletter for Ann Arbor schools came out, and it basically said, just a reminder, all of our football games have been moved to Thursday due to the Jewish holiday of Yom Kippur. So I thought that it was important to note that Ann Arbor is recognizing this, and Saline wants to be non-excluding and welcoming, then I think it's important also.
I think overall we just want to make sure that anyone that wants to participate in homecoming can be included, especially because homecoming is such a vital part of student life, especially for incoming freshmen or, just anyone really enjoys homecoming. And we think that the whole weekend, meaning Friday and Saturday, the game and the dance should be available to all that want to participate. So, thank you. Oh, also, we would like to include that if necessary, we are thinking of possibly drawing up a petition for the student body to sign to encourage the rescheduling of homecoming. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there other members of the audience who wish to address the board this evening? Superintendent Grady.
A few things tonight. One, on the issue of the homecoming date for 2014, as they've said, it's noted, the weekend is really the game and the dance occur and coincide with the holiday. It's our practice and goal to avoid scheduling events like homecoming that conflict with major religious holidays. As Mr. Gumnick noted, it's not directly a board policy. However, it certainly has been our practice in the past, and I think is a valid issue for us. This year, to avoid the weekend, we had looked at and been requested by a downtown organization to avoid the weekend prior to the 3rd and 4th as our homecoming date. In doing so, looking at the traditional or the typical month window that we would schedule a homecoming event, really put us into a situation where we were looking at October 3rd to accommodate the request. We've heard from several parents and faculty members expressing concern about the date and the timing of it, and not only just that it's a conflict, but really I think in larger part the message that it sends, and it certainly carries weight with me in terms of that is not the message we want to send as a school district in terms of our ability to be open and inclusive of all within our community. With that said, it's not my recommendation to move the date, but does point that there needs to be a clear method for handling this moving forward. And so I look for specific actions to determine what is the best method for us to make sure that this doesn't happen again, not only in the short term. We've already looked at like next year's date associated specifically with homecoming. What are the other dates that we need to make sure we're honoring? And then ultimately, how do we make sure that this doesn't happen again down the road? I am aware that it's happened several years ago, and so it seems as though we've kind of repeated history. How can we make sure that it doesn't happen again? Again, not only for homecoming, but for other major activities, as Mr. Gumnick noted. So, and I regret, honestly, that I didn't vet fully all the options associated with homecoming, particularly perhaps a date later in the season would have been appropriate, and not do so. One would like to thank Kurt Ellis and the Foundation for Saline School's Alumni Committee, who put together the Hall of Fame event on Friday and Saturday last weekend. It turned out very well, and the induction of that inaugural class went very well on Saturday evening. If you go to the high school now, on the wall outside of the choir room, kind of towards the performing arts end, you'll see the plaques associated with the inductees, as well as kind of the Hall of Fame itself. We look forward to watching that grow over the years to come. It's still very early, but from an enrollment standpoint, it appears that we're going to be close to our budgeted number of 20 students down than the 2013-14 year. Again, it's still very early in that process, and we're continuing to refine that. We did end up with about 317 kindergartners. Our target really was 330, but of note, we graduated 460 12th graders. So if you think about it in the context of grades 1 through 11, we're up over 100 students. So again, we're seeing the infill. Saline continues to be a destination district. However, our birth rates and our numbers of kindergartners are really, and I'll say historical, but are as low as they've been in many years. And then lastly, the storms on Friday night kind of washed out the halftime performance. We are rescheduling the alumni band night. We'll be noting to that. So folks who are coming out on the 26th, alumni band night will be scheduled on that night. That's all I have.
Okay. Anything from board members?
I have a couple of points I'd like to
Sure.
make
Go
on the
ahead.
subject of the holiday and the game. One is that I think it would be a good idea for us to move this to a discussion with the policy committee. However, I've been given 2 pieces of paper that have said, this has been the policy in the past. So paperwork is one thing, and it's helpful. But I'm still concerned about this year and the lack of consideration. I think we're in a position to model the kind of behavior we want to see in this community tonight. And I think it would be, and it is within our power to change the date of the game.
And if you can change one event because it gets rained out, it seems to me we can change another event because something has come to our attention that's really rather important to the community.
Any other comments from board members?
I think you guys know where I stand on religious freedom, so I believe that it is very important that we make a policy, and I would say, as echo what Diane said, that we need to ensure this does not happen again. And I would echo what Diane said, that I think we have the power to say, let's change it. And that if an event gets rained out, we move it. So I think that with that thrown out there, I think that we would be reneging on our commitment to the community if we did not. So I would say we need to make a motion and put it to a vote.
Any other comments from board members?
May I ask a question, or is that only for comments?
Go ahead.
Is there any reason why we can't move it?
Specifically, there would be logistical issues associated with the various activities. The student council representatives have talked to me about some of their concerns if the dates were moved relative to what they had planned for that. So, the suggestion I would have, if it were to move, it would move later in the year. I think it typically has occurred in that middle of the season window. If we were to move it, we would look, I believe, to the October 17th date. It's unclear as to what impact that would have in terms of the activities that are planned.
Is that the last game of the year, or is that?
It's the second to
home?
last.
Second to the last?
Second to last home game of the, well, and second to last game of the year, actually. The last two games are home.
Last two games are home.
So, essentially there are two dates that we're home, 26th and the 3rd. Away on the 10th, which would be this following weekend following the current date for homecoming, and then home on the 17th and 24th.
And is there a day that school is closed?
That 16th, that Friday, they're closed the day before the, that's a good point, yeah, that Friday.
Does that make an impact of any sort?
It's unfortunate. We typically wouldn't obviously have homecoming on a short week of school. There are a lot of student activities, but that's.
I mean, I'm a moderate fan of football and homecoming, and I respect everybody's pleasure in taking part of this. But it seems to me that homecoming would be a good event on the last event of the football game. It's a great time to celebrate the end of the season. So I have a hard time seeing it as an inconvenience, a real inconvenience to anybody.
I mean, I guess we would have discussion at some point, but I understand the logistics and accept them. I mean, I'm sure the homecoming committee has, as you've mentioned, parade permits and that kind of stuff that they would have to deal with. Being later in the season, there's the chance for bad weather, much more. I mean, it's a few weeks later, but you know. So I can understand reasons not to move it as well, but I think that it would behoove us to at least put it out there for a vote.
And I truly believe that if you have the football game and the dance on the Yom Kippur holiday, it will change the atmosphere of the students, because we know that we'd be discriminating against our friends and other teachers and students, and it will just change the whole atmosphere of the weekend.
Any other comments from board members?
And just one other thing, I would say we would definitely need to present it as religious freedom for everyone, not just that this is a Jewish holiday that we wish to preserve. Because I think that that's really what we're standing for, is, you know, religious freedom across the board. So.
Yeah, and Saline is a little late to the show in this topic.
Chief?
I think what's important is that we do what's right for our school, our students, our staff. So if it can be changed, and/or if we can get it to the policy where we can do something about it in the future, I think we need to make that move. So I would ask that, I know that we're discussing it now, but maybe we can slide it into the agenda before we approve it.
We'll get to that. Any other comments from board members?
My feeling is, I think we have to respect, you know, it's an inconvenience and it's difficult, but I think, you know, again, the religious holiday is important, and if it was on somebody else's holiday, they would feel very strongly in, you know, so we have to respect that. And I think at this point, there are other dates. It's not like, oops, that was the last opportunity. There may be some inconveniences, but I think there are opportunities to still have it be a great homecoming, just at a different time.
And the error was made on the part of the school, and what did we call it, an inconvenience, would be our issue, because we did make the error, so we created the inconvenience.
Any other comments from board members? I want to address the issue a little bit and maybe take a little different context on it. Certainly, I don't think there was any intention to slight any group or any individual. I grew up in Dearborn, and when I went to high school, and I'm going to date myself here, it was about 40 years ago, we had an Arabic population that was mainly concentrated in South Dearborn, near the Fort Rouge complex. At that time, Dearborn Public Schools did not recognize some of the Muslim holidays. And that a generation later, about 15 years ago, Dearborn Public Schools recognized those holidays, to where now they take those holidays off. So when Ramadan comes up, which I think is in October, I may have that wrong, but they have dates that is on their district calendar that they do not hold school. So at some point, there was a tipping point that said, okay, we're going to recognize that, because a significant population of our student body and their families hold those days to be very significant. And I'm sure Ann Arbor went through that same process when they made the decision to say, okay, we're not going to hold football games on that Friday night and that. So a couple things. I think one, it should go to the policy committee, and we should look at it in that context. That whether it's a Jewish holiday, a Muslim holiday, a Hindu holiday, a Catholic holiday, that we look at those dates and say, okay, what are the significant religious dates there? And we make every attempt to avoid any significant school events on those days. I would also maybe ask Superintendent Graydon to take a look, and if we can, change the date. And that I'm not sure we necessarily need a board vote on that. I think Superintendent Graydon has gotten the flavor of the board here this evening, and I would suggest that he take a serious look at it and report back to the board as quickly as possible. And you can do that through me. And we will try to do the right thing here. But I think the larger issue is, should go to the policy committee, where we should look at it and say, okay, at what point do we say we're gonna take these days and exclude having school events on those days, because a significant population of our student body recognizes those days. I mean, there's an old joke that goes around, and it's been told in business circles, that if you take all the days and you exclude them, that you have about 4 days out of the year to actually do something. And so, and I say that humorously and not to diminish the gravity of the issue, but, we still have about 5,300 students. So at what point do we say, okay, there are 2 members of a certain class that say this is a date that we don't want to have something? And are we going to make the accommodation for 2 students at the expense of 5,300? I mean, we have to weigh that out too, and I think that's what the policy committee will grapple with. And I think we'll have a robust discussion about it, and it'll come back to the board. And at that point, the board will decide how we want to move forward with that. And that,
I want to make sure everybody understands that we're not talking about cutting out any academic days of school with this particular event.
These
Just
are
to make sure everybody
extracurricular
understands.
activities.
This is just
yeah,
extracurricular.
but it could extend that far.
It could.
It could extend that far.
But in this event, it doesn't.
And it, you know, I saw it happen in Dearborn over a generation where, you know, things changed significantly, and the community changed significantly. So when we talk about inclusion in that, I think communities are inclusive. I don't think we go out of our way to, you know, try to thumb our nose at people or groups. And I think it's appropriate we move this to the policy committee with Superintendent Grady taking a look at the immediate issue and see if there's a way that we can make that accommodation.
May I add something?
Sure, go ahead.
Just real quick, I think, yeah, this will be great discussion at policy, because I'm sure we're going to run into a lot of that. But I want to take just a second and make sure that everybody understands we're not throwing Mr. Graydon under the bus because of the way the date came up. This is an opportunity for this board to make a change for the good of our students, and we move on. And we'll take care of the future, hopefully.
And I'd just throw one more nugget out there, in that we mentioned that we had this problem before, and I think we let it slide. So I think maybe this time we need to take a little more notice.
Okay. Any other comments from board members?
I know Mr. Graydon was saying earlier how our population is increasing and becoming more of a destination city. And I think if we do not move the date of homecoming and football, it will tell everyone who is thinking about coming to Saline that we are a city that doesn't respect everyone's religions, and it will definitely be a deterrent for anyone who is thinking about moving to our beautiful city.
Appreciate that comment. Anything else?
Do you want other comments? I have a.
Go ahead, go ahead, go ahead.
I hate to change the subject until
Yep.
it's time, but.
Go right ahead.
I was at the Foundation for Saline Schools board meeting this morning. Just a couple things that are coming up. The night on the patio, September 26th. That they'll be gathering on the patio to celebrate. Also, teacher grants. It's time to be thinking about teacher grants, and so encourage teachers, any that's here, or teachers that are considering applying for those teacher grants. It's a great opportunity for us to explore and celebrate some innovative thinking and stuff for the teachers. So we want to make sure that we encourage those to happen. Also, the ABCs of Saline area schools, there's a book that's finally, I think it's probably being printed or done with printing. There will be a book signing on October 6th. Should be a fun book to read. And then also, they're looking at some activities, some potential raffle, and organizations that might be able to partner together with this foundation for this raffle. And so more information will be coming later on that. So just wanted to keep you posted on what's going on with the foundation. They're busy.
Thank you.
They're very busy right now.
Thank you. Busy is good. Busy is good. Any other comments from board members? Okay, the chair will entertain a motion to approve the agenda as printed.
So moved.
Chief, support. With a second from Secretary Heineck. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. We have no scheduled reports, but we do have 2 action items this evening. The chair will entertain a motion to approve the SASAA bargaining agreement as submitted by Superintendent Grady.
So moved.
Support. Karen, with a second from Todd. And Superintendent Grady.
I'm going to actually turn it over to Assistant Superintendent Ellis to talk about the agreement, proposed agreement.
The agreement we reached with SASA, our administrative group, is a 2-year agreement. In year 1 of the agreement, it calls for a wage and step freeze with a reopener after the fourth Wednesday count to determine if we did increase in enrollment. Mr. Graydon addressed the fact that right now we're looking as if we're somewhere between 20 and 30 down from last year, so I don't know if that's going to be good news for us, but again, we did have that in there. The administrative contract had a wage scale, and we've largely modified or done away with the wage scale. We now have two different pay rates for each position. We've got a probationary rate and then a veteran rate, if you will, for those people who have been with the district 4 or more years. The most significant change in both agreements was with regard to healthcare. We are going to move to Mesa for these groups. We've been in a self-funded Blue Cross Blue Shield plan for the last several years. And while that self-funded plan, I think, is a great model, long-term, there's an economy of scale that just made it difficult. We were not a big enough group to be able to withstand some of the peaks and valleys that you see in a self-funded plan. So we are moving to Mesa, but the most significant difference that we've come up with is that we've negotiated institutional hard caps or district hard caps that are different than what the state's hard caps are. Those hard caps are $4,500 for single coverage, $9,700 for single plus one coverage, and $11,100 for full family coverage. And so that's what the district's contribution would be to healthcare. Move to more of a defined contribution model as opposed to talking about what specific benefits that we were going to offer. In the realm of salary, we did agree to an off-schedule salary increase with regard to healthcare dollars saved beyond $50,000. So if we save more than $50,000 with the changes we've made from that group and that group alone, those healthcare savings dollars beyond $50,000 would be returned to them and split proportionally among the people that are enrolled in healthcare. With regard to a potential, and we've noted that, per pupil foundation allowance increase, if we received a per pupil foundation allowance increase, 7% of what we received from the state would be divided among that group equally. If we don't get anything, then that doesn't become an issue, but if we get that, we would divide that from those folks. And then October 17th, which is the date that Mrs. Freeze referred to relative to being a break day this year, is also a day off for our administrators. In 15-16, we have a wage and step reopener, the same healthcare caps as this year, so we can budget for 2 years based on those. And then we move the directors group, which right now is our Director of Technology and our Director of Special Education Services, will both move to the elementary principal pay scale. So that's the summary of those agreements for 2 years.
Any questions?
What was the 7% number and how was that arrived at?
Right now, we've benchmarked in very general terms how much of the district's budget goes to each group. And so what we've said, if we get a foundation allowance increase, if the state gives us more money, that we will continue to share that essentially in the way we have.
Within the county, within this year.
Correct. And if we don't, then we don't have anything to share.
And if our foundation rate goes down?
There is no reduction.
Okay.
All right.
So
Yeah.
overall, from the net pay perspective of that group, are they seeing a significant change up or down, or is it kind of
Pay-wise, no,
static?
there's a significant healthcare concession. And that was by design. You'll see that with the ESP as well. What we've done is really, as we've talked about with the board, there's a pie of revenue that we have available to us, and what we've done is we've talked about how we can reconfigure that to everybody's best advantage. And what we've tried to do is preserve salary dollar where we can and exchange that with healthcare concessions.
But the plan that they're moving into gives them equivalent to better healthcare value, I would.
I try not to get into the value judgments, but it certainly gives them options, and the quality of care or the quality of coverage is on par, if not perceived as being better. I've often used the kind of the sneaker company analogies. You know, people want to pay more for Nike because they think it's better, and whether it is or not, it's not up to me to decide. But this is a product that people have wanted to be in for a long time. So.
And do they pay less for this product than the previous product?
Less than they would have had we stayed with the previous
Yeah.
product, more than we did a year ago.
So how would this coverage compare to what some of the other bargaining units have, who also have MESA policies?
Well, with ESP, which I'm assuming I'll be asked to present on here in just a moment, it's identical.
Okay.
With the teachers, we right now have the same, it'll be the same coverage, the same policies, the same plans that are available. In the teacher agreement, there is still the state hard cap that we work from. And as I noted, we have the institutional or district hard caps here.
So let me, when we talk about the healthcare, everyone's going to be on the same plan. The issue is the contribution that the district makes towards the coverage of that plan. So when it comes to the actual benefit level themselves, it's consistent, right?
Yeah.
Same card goes on the table at the doctor's office.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess I'm a little bit, and maybe this is like, your price for airline flights here, but I mean, I think MESA's a pretty sharp organization. How could they offer that price, and then we have a hard cap that's, if it's my understanding, over $15,000?
To be clear, that's not the MESA price, that's our contribution, so the
Gotcha.
employees are paying into this.
So
Okay.
as an employee,
Yeah.
I'm paying.
Correct.
Okay.
Now, I will say this, MESA's product and comparable coverage is substantially less than what we looked at elsewhere. And there are a lot of theories as to why that may or may not be, but the fact remains right now, as far as value for the dollar, it is a tremendous value. So that's why we selected that product. But our contribution, if we said 2 years from now, we're gonna go to another Blue Cross Blue Shield product, our contribution would remain the same regardless of the cost of the plan. What we've done is tried to be able to level off or to predict our expenses and protect ourselves a bit from the peaks and valleys associated with healthcare.
And MESA has a bit of an advantage by spreading that risk.
Sure.
Their membership is far, and I mean, as a group, Saline area schools would have probably, I mean, not a poor risk, but a higher risk factor because of the lower number of people.
I commend you for the sharing of, any upside on the state revenue that we get. I think that that is clearly a path forward. It allows us to manage those expenses moving forward. And that, I think we do have to be careful in case we get the rug pulled out from under us, which coming out of Lansing, you're never quite sure where that's going to end up. But it's certainly a step in the right direction.
All right, Bill, I just want to thank the administrative group for once again stepping up and really being leaders when it comes to looking at things associated with the elimination effectively of a wage scale, and certainly to move in a direction along with ESP with healthcare really, I think, puts us where we need to be not only a desirable employer, but also provide a level of benefit to our employees that allows them to be healthy and successful as well. So it's a really, I think, a great contract for us as a school district, and I appreciate the administrators stepping up to do that.
Any other questions or comments? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Chair will entertain a motion to approve the ESP bargaining agreement as submitted by Superintendent Graydon.
So moved.
Diane, support, and a second by Trustee Carter. Superintendent Graydon.
Throw it over to Assistant Superintendent Ellis for this one.
We know who does work around
Yeah,
here.
yeah.
Okay.
I didn't read the document.
Practically speaking, very similar from a structural standpoint. The agreement calls for a wage and step freeze. There are a couple of individual positions that were affected a little bit differently, but essentially as far as wages and steps, those are frozen for this year. We did add an additional 1.5 hours a week for paraeducators to account for additional training, homework, hive help to serve our students, that type of work. And then 18 hours additionally on an annual basis for our bus drivers for that same type of training so that they can be better prepared to deal with the students that we have on the bus. We made some adjustments relative to the probationary period for both healthcare and employment. The healthcare we're offering at an earlier stage, and in exchange we picked up another 30 days of probationary period that we can evaluate an employee's performance before we have a long-term commitment to them. There was a sick day payout provision that was set to sunset out on June 30th of 2014. We did extend that out 2 years. And then as far as healthcare, and again, this is where the bulk of the work was done, the same hard caps that I articulated for our teachers. What this group did is they guaranteed healthcare savings of $150,000 from within their group. And so the thought is that between the changes in the hard caps that we have internally now and the subsequent adjustments that people may make with regard to enrollment, the district is guaranteed $150,000 in savings. If we have more than that $150,000 in savings, again, that money would go right back to the group to be divided amongst those who are participating. A couple other minor changes relative to a couple individual positions, and then some things with regard to food service about reimbursement and clothing. In 15-16, again, a 2-year deal. In 15-16, those same hard caps are in place. The off-schedule salary increase, I'm going to sneeze for a second. Off-schedule salary increase equal to 8% of any foundation allowance that we get, and again, that's kind of a continuation of that same proportion of the budget that they're receiving now. If we get a state per pupil foundation allowance increase, and then we also have a salary reopener if our student enrollment goes up by 50 or more students. And as Superintendent Graydon and I have said, if we go up over 50 students, we'll have to stop the cartwheels down the hallway to sit down and have our wage reopener. So it'd be a good situation for all of us to be in. So,
Any questions or comments from board members?
I'd like to thank the ESP group. I think they're generally been the hardest hit group that we have, and I think this is a nice change. I like the innovation in both contracts, or, you know, as we make more, we reward them. So I think it's a good thing. Thanks, Al.
Yeah, quickly, I just want to jump and echo that same comment. I appreciate their support, and not only the 2-year agreement is another nice factor to be able to provide to this group, so they can, rest, a little bit in the sense of our commitment to them as a group.
I think what the board is trying to demonstrate is that we want to be partners with our collective bargaining units. We don't view it as an adversarial relationship, even though sometimes it's difficult times, and those are difficult discussions, and sometimes even difficult outcomes. We do view our bargaining units as partners with us, and that we'll continue that philosophy moving forward. So again, Kurt, great job, and to both bargaining units, thank you. Any other questions or comments?
Thank you, Kurt, for all your work. Janice, whoever on the team. Val, you too. I mean, both sides. I think both sides. I think it was mutual.
Yes.
And good work on both sides.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Before we go to the discussion items, I excluded Carrie Yang. I wanted to give you a little time to talk there. You jumped in, which was great. You participated in the discussion, but did want to formally introduce you, welcome you to the board.
Thank you.
And you want to, I know you're now the reigning Miss Saline. I picked that up in that, but if you wanted to make any comments, introduce yourself, we'd welcome that.
So I'm Carrie Yang. I'm a Saline High School student, and I'm just really excited to be on the board and be able to give my input of what the board could do or should do, or if they're doing a good job, and I like to commend that, and also just try to get the views of all the students and try to get their input so everyone knows what people at the school are actually thinking.
Thank you, and welcome again. Got 3 discussion items. The first one is superintendent goals.
Yeah, I talked to Mr. Heine today about that issue, so if you want to...
Do you want me to?
Yeah, if you want to take the lead, then I'll jump in.
Okay. Superintendent Graydon established 2 goals for himself for this coming school year. One was to increase the fund balance by 1.75% over the course of the school year. And the second one was similar to last year's strategic framework goal. I think kind of just replace the word create and
kind of refine
do, and it says refine now, because I think as we all think, the strategic framework is a very important document, and it tends to drive the district. The evaluation committee kind of talked about it, and we kind of came up with a 30% weighting factor for the goal on the fund balance and 70% on the strategic framework balance. Karen, you were good. Not had no response.
Yeah, and
I think that the strategic plan or strategic framework is critically important to where Saline is going. And so that's why we put the heavier weight to it. And we know that it takes money to be able to do that. So we gotta make sure that we can get there. And so we said, all right, well, if he's not able to do the fund balance, then, so that's why we wanted to stress the strategic framework. But the fund balance is also important.
I think during our meeting on the, I believe it was on the 26th of August, which was our kind of our retreat meeting, we reconfirmed our commitment to the strategic framework. On the opening day, I had the opportunity to address the staff there at the Ellen Ewing Center and kind of modified some of the things we're going to emphasize within the strategic framework, and I won't go over that this evening. But I think it's important that there's just two goals because it creates focus, and that's what we want. The board wants the district to remain focused on the strategic framework. We're all committed to that. We want to see it come to fruition, and we will continue to drive that. And really, as a board, if something comes up, we kind of ask ourselves, is it going to help us accomplish one of the 5 goals? And if we can't say yes, then we shouldn't be doing it. And I mean, the issue that came up tonight, that's goal 4. That's goal 4. I mean, that fits right within the strategic framework, and we will address it within that context. So I think we have the buy-in of Superintendent Graydon and his administrative team, and we really want to, and keep in mind, the strategic framework was really kind of a grassroots, bottom-up exercise. And that, so, teachers in the classroom, building principals, administrators, the community, all had input into those 5 goals. And now it's our job as a board to make sure that gets implemented. Because a lot of organizations are great at putting together plans. They're not very good at implementing. And that, so we're gonna stay laser focused on implementation and be able to drive this moving forward. Not just this year, but this is many years into the future. And I think we're going to have enough consistency on the board over the next several years to where that's going to happen.
I have consulted at many organizations that have these beautiful binders that sit up on the shelf. That is their strategic plan, and nobody ever opens them and reads them.
Yeah.
And they spend millions of dollars to put that together.
Yeah.
So we are not going to do.
We did not spend millions of dollars to put our, for the record.
Yes.
And sometimes they pull the one out from 10 years ago and dust it off and just put a new date on it. And that's another story. And, okay, any other further discussion? And I want to thank the evaluation committee for taking the body of work out of the 26th and taking that further, and certainly appreciate your efforts in that. Any other comments on this discussion item? Okay. Open property update.
Just wanted to touch base with this group. We've been working and continue to work on a kind of an innovative plan associated with that property. President Holo and I met and reviewed documents we received from through law firm, again, related to a base price for the property and then looking at a way to capture additional value associated with that development on almost a per unit or a per lot basis. So we're getting further along in that. We're prepared to now sit down and really refine that. We want to get some feedback on that from another source here within this week to determine kind of where we think that could go. We're likely, if all things proceed well, we're likely to have something to come to the board certainly within the next 2 meetings. I know we have a workshop meeting on 26th, but certainly by that first week meeting in October, I would like to see us have some type of a viable purchase agreement for everyone to review and hopefully move forward on. That property has value, and we're looking at the way not only to maximize the initial value associated with the dollars for the property and development, but again, as we look at our enrollment numbers, what are the ways we can maximize the development to enhance our student count down the road? So I think we're getting closer. We've got, I think, a pretty unique plan that, if it goes well, could really benefit the district, short and long term.
Yeah, I think we're close. I mean, we have a draft agreement in, that we put together, and that we've probably got another iteration or two before we finalize it. But yeah, I think that expectation that we set out a couple months ago, of bringing this to the board in October, I think we're still on that timeline. MASB Fall Conference, which will be held, I have it here somewhere, November 6th through the 9th in Grand Rapids. And I know I will be in Chicago that weekend. But certainly if there are board members who wish to attend that conference, we would encourage that.
I would like to attend, and I know that they request voting delegates for each of the districts, and since I will be there, I would be glad to be one of our delegates if that's needed, so.
Are there any other board members who plan on attending?
I'm out of town the weekend before, so I'm not sure I can, but I'll get my schedule.
How many voting delegates are we?
I think you can have 3, I think.
In the past,
And then some
we've essentially had
alternates.
all approved, and then whoever goes, then.
Okay, yeah, without objection, I think whoever attends, and Heidi, you demonstrated you're going to
We
attend.
can bring it to the board the first meeting in October.
Yeah, we can do that. We have time to take formal action on that, but I think you can plan on that. And we have budgeted dollars for that type of activity.
A lot of valuable information.
And you can do it one day or.
Yeah, you don't have to
Yeah.
go the full time, again, you go all or one,
And I would encourage you not to take 6 classes.
No, I've done that before.
Freshman year, and it about killed me.
There's also, next week, I believe it's on the 16th, I don't have my calendar right in front of me, but there's through the MASB Region 7 legislative networking meeting to kind of set what the agenda will be for the MASB in Lansing, what positions they want to advocate. It's going to be held in Jackson. I plan on attending it that evening. Certainly, if there's other board members that want to go.
What was the date?
It's the 16th.
Yeah, it's next Tuesday.
So if there's other board members who want to go, we'll fire up Big Blue and we'll drive out there together.
Can't do that one.
Okay. All right.
Kind of if I can, real quick, piggyback on the fall conference. On the 22nd of September, MASB has partnered with the American School Foundation Alliance to put on essentially a conference associated with the benefits of school foundations within K-12. I know the foundation for Saline Schools is sending a representative, but if the board is interested, that may be something additional. But I know the foundation is having someone go, and that's the 22nd, 2 weeks. A week from Monday.
Does Heidi happen to be the representative from?
Nope, she is not, although, and I think you said
Two in one shot?
that you weren't available.
I think I have something that day. I can see if I can change it. If it's important for us to have somebody there, I'll see if I can do that.
Yeah. I'm looking at my calendar as well. I don't know if I can commit to that date, but
If you can just let me know, we'll take you out during the registration.
Yeah.
So.
okay. We'll move to the consent agenda. The chair will entertain a motion to authorize items A through F as part of the consent agenda. So moved. Vice President Heff, do we have a second?
Second.
Trustee Freeze. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Items on the next agenda. That's our work session, and I believe we're going to do the school improvement plans.
Yeah, Mr. Assistant Superintendent Lodge is working with some building leaders to have that presentation ready to go for the 23rd.
It was August
Yeah,
26th.
yeah, August 23rd.
Okay. And anything else?
That'll be the focus of the.
That'll probably take us
Will that have some capital planning
Yeah, this is more
wrapped around it?
When
or-
it's more, it's going to be largely instructional improvement.
Oh,
Yeah, so it's going to
okay.
be focused on classroom
Gotcha.
and building climate and some other things. Yeah, gotcha. Good question.
This is the second opportunity for members of the public to address the board. Are there any members of the audience who wish to address the board? Sure, come on up.
Good evening. I'm Ann O'Harris. I'm an English teacher at the high school. Hello. I also am the student council co-advisor, and I just want to come up here tonight and express a concern that I have about the homecoming dance being on Yom Kippur, and also another Muslim religious holiday that begins on October 4th that evening and goes on the 5th. I know that my president of the student council is worried and concerned about what that might do to scheduling conflicts, permits, planning that we have done. But I think it's important for us to think about what message we're sending to our students by scheduling something on a big holiday like this. And I missed the earlier conversation about it, but I just wanted to come up here and just express concerns that I have about it for our Jewish students and for our advisors, one of which is Jewish, who will not be able to attend the game nor the dance after putting a whole week in on building floats and being in the barns with students and getting them all riled up, and then not being able to come to the game or to the dance is a disappointment for her as well. So I just wanted to throw out comments about that. As an advisor, I understand the how much work is going to go into to reschedule this event, but I think that our council, I think the students can do it, put it together. I know that the secondary date is on the 17th, which is the day that we do not have school. Jeff Kazee and I, Jeff Kazee is the other co-advisor, and I have talked about perhaps pushing it off to the following week on the 24th, which is a home game as well. It's the last home game that we have of the season. I know that it's a little late in the season, but that would give us an additional couple weeks to get those permits pulled, to do what we need to do to move that parade, and to move the event to that day instead, so that all of our students have an opportunity to come. So I just wanted to come up and just voice my opinion about it. I'm not sure how many people actually spoke on behalf of student council, but I believe very strongly that we could do what we need to do to make sure that all our students can be there. So thank you.
And I
Yes.
would suggest in the discussion that we had previously, we've asked Superintendent Graydon to look at that date.
Great.
Certainly, if we're looking at alternative dates, I would suggest that you get with Superintendent Graydon, because I know you do a lot of the work in terms of getting the floats ready and things like that.
There's a lot of planning involved.
So
but,
I
yeah.
think it'd be good to communicate with
Absolutely.
Superintendent Graydon, because if we're looking at alternative dates, you know,
We have to
wanna try make it
consider
work for everyone.
lots of dates and what they might do for other conflicts. But, you know, this is a big one, and I know that, you know, in our staff handbook, we do have that. No things are going to be scheduled on homecoming weekend. And I was surprised in the summer when I heard that it actually fell on Yom Kippur. And I mentioned something then, and, you know, it just kind of went away. And then, you know, I'm not surprised that there's beginning to be a little bit of rumbling about what's going on, especially when you talk to my colleagues who are part of the advising team and are taking on classes. And they, you know, they do a lot of work, and to not be able to be there at the football game or at the dance is it's a big concern. So.
Is
Thank
there
you.
a reason why we're off on the 17th? What is that?
It's kind of the middle of that first trimester.
So I'm assuming maybe a lot of college visits is something that may.
Yeah, I sense
Yeah.
maybe
Yeah,
there'd be,
I think in that weekend, that week also on the 15th, we have a big testing day at the high school. So seniors aren't going to be there at the school. And then the 17th, no one's going to be there, which means the pep assembly we have to move to Thursday. I know that there's colleagues who are already planning on taking, since the long weekend, taking a break and going to town to try to do a dance, and, you know, having that Friday as our parade day. I just worry about attendance at that. So I would prefer, you know, when we talk about it, prefer to push it off into the 24th if we can. I mean, it's just an option, something we can do. So, anyway, thank you.
Thank you.
Are there any other members of the audience who wish to address the board this evening? The next Board of Education meeting will be held on Tuesday, September 23rd, 2014 at 6:30 here at Liberty. And with that, the chair will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Todd, second from Vice President Hepp. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carried. We are done.